Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to another week of the National League of Legends Collegiate Series. My name is Reed Rapid Melton, and I'll be bringing you guys tonight's games, at least from a commentary's perspective. Don't want to take anything away from our wonderful production crew or the teams who are actually going to be the ones bringing you guys the games. So this is going to be a long night for UBC as they are playing 2 games in a row. We just got done with Virginia Tech versus University of Connecticut. That was an East Coast game. Get into the West Coast here. UBC taking on Oregon State University. Now, Oregon State, a team that not only took me a long time to learn how to pronounce, it also took me a while to kind of get behind their roster. I mean, they put up several close games, but have never really been able to come out as one of the big powerhouses. And in fact, the last game of the night is going to be between 2 of the big NLCS powerhouses this season. And then, of course, UBC and SJSU Gold. I cannot wait to see that game. It's going to be amazing. And this game actually might be amazing, too, for a couple of reasons. Yasuo Champloo and, of course, Mr. Puggly Wuggly's there in the mid lane, and Esser Surveil. Those 3 guys have been putting up some big numbers. And not to take anything away from External and Bonifacio, who've also been putting up some decent numbers, too. But UBC at this point are just ridiculous. They've got an all-challenger lineup. Purchase has been out there in the competitive scene for an incredibly long time. And honestly, it's not just the individual players that make UBC so strong. It is their pick and ban phase is a big part of that. You can see that they know exactly what they want before they even head into the game. And a lot of people, maybe they get together and talk about picks and bans, but UBC esports, no joke. These guys do take this very seriously, and you can see first pick of a Maokai. Now, I'm not actually too big of a fan of the Maokai anymore. I think that it definitely had its place in the top lane, but it's been nerfed quite a few times in a row, and now there are starting to be a few counters out there. Pretty much anything with a lot of sustain, anything that just wants to fight you straight up is pretty good. Because Maokai actually has a lot of options. He can stand back and throw saplings and knock you away, or he can just force fights there with a twisted advance. So really the lane is under his control for a large portion of that. But we've already seen champions like Swain, like Aatrox. Both of those do very well against Maokai. And the big thing about those champions is that nobody really plays them. So Maokai's in a pretty safe place unless you've practiced the counter picks. The only problem is most people don't, and if you do, you actually get pretty highly rewarded because he is a very popular pick out there in the top lane right now. So prioritizing the Janna, I can understand that. She's probably the strongest support right now. Once again, come full circle from Season 2. But the Elise jungle, I'm thinking you could probably catch that a little bit later on in your pick phase. That will give up 2 very, very strong laners, and that is going to be Zilean and Yasuo. Of course, Yasuo Maokai is a great composition. You got a big knockup in the form of Arcane Smash, and well, Yasuo loves those knockups, so he's going to be looking for that. Now, Proof of Purchase will probably pick up a Vi here. Vi and Yasuo both very, very strong. I mean, you could go for like a Lee Sin. It's kind of the same idea as a Vi. You walk in the lane, kick somebody, and Yasuo ults off of that. But of course, Vi a little bit better because they keep it in place. And overall, I think Vi has a little bit more damage in her kit than Yasuo, or than Lee Sin does. I don't think anybody has more damage in their kit than Yasuo. He's pretty ridiculous right now. So, locking on that means that you probably should see a Wombo Combo-y team comp coming off of that, and I like the Zilean pick because not only does it get every lane ahead from the level advantage, it also gives Yasuo the movement speed and the ability to revive. So when you build the comp around Yasuo, one big way to take that comp down is to just kill him over and over again. You might imagine that is somewhat detrimental to his health. He just kind of dies over and then you just have no damage. So the ability to revive him, if he is a big source of damage, will be incredibly effective. The only problem is we have yet to see what the last 2 picks are. This could really screw things up because if you go too all in on the Wombo combo, I feel like you might not, you're kind of lacking in a lot of other areas. Things like wave clear. Specifically, you go for a lot of champions with knockups. Well, those don't really target minions all that much. So we'll see how this looks. Once again, Proof of Purchase. Best juggler would probably be a Vi. At least that's the most classic
champion when you think of Proof, but for Bobchen in the mid lane, like that's I guess he is kind of their big hope now. And of course, we're also looking for a jungle and AD carry come out there for UBC. AD carry is unpicked for both teams, which is actually kind of surprising. Usually you see those actually picked up very early on. But still looking for the AD carry, or the ad carry as OGN might call it. A Lucian pick, it's pretty much assumed at this point. I don't think we're going to see anything to the contrary. But against Lucians, a lot of times you pick hyper carries. Like, if you don't want to go hyper carries, you pretty much just pick up Corki. Just in time for Worlds, Corki is very strong in the lane phase, and probably the expected pick, but I feel if you're Oregon State University here, you know that you're coming into this against one of the strongest teams in the league. We're not taking anything away from Oregon State either. It's just, the records show it. If we're looking for a last pick, and maybe they want to go for a little bit of a hyper carry because they know that they will be forced to bring things back a little bit later on. I do not like the Varus. Varus is pretty bad, even if Lord Varus does know a lot about what's going on out there on Summoner's Rift and or Seven Kingdoms. But locking in the Kog'Maw, I don't know about that. Like if we had a jungler like I don't know, Kha'Zix or anybody that or maybe like a Warwick jungle, those things that are very immobile, they're just gonna run around and try to get in your face. Probably not too worrying for a Kog'Maw, but anytime you dunk down on that guy, I mean, Proof of Purchase's Cataclysm ult, it has a somewhat lower cooldown than Kog'Maw's Flash, and it's going to be a perfect way to force that. The other big problem with Kog'Maw is that, his only form of kiting comes from walking backwards over his Voidoos, but Remy has like a 55% slow for 5 seconds, so external is going to be, hopefully has enough range to stay back in the back, because if Remy or Proof get on top of him, he is not going anywhere. Some extra move speed from Bonifacio and a lot of peel potential there with that Janna ultimate mean that it's actually a little bit safer to play ranged carries out there on the Rifts. So looking forward to seeing how this works out for them. About 3 minutes left on the spectator delay. We can finally look at all 5 champions in the team comps. Like the Mundo pick top lane, but at the same time I feel like he might be a little bit useless. While Lucian is not a big outputter of damage for young Mundo, he still has to watch out. He still has to build a little bit of armor for that, and that's actually pretty good. There's a decent mix of magic damage on UBC just because they do have Remy. He'll be going support Zillion, so it's not going to be a ton of it. And top lane Maokai does do a lot of magic damage. I mean, that's no joke, but still not the biggest source out there. So Mundo has a high potential of just building armor and becoming invincible, which is good, but at the same time you have to save your damage, and what's going to do that? Maybe Mundo cleavers, maybe just running on the back line and making Remy and Tabi Choi a little bit antsy about that. I mean, he is a little bit vulnerable to the percentage health damage coming out from Jarvan's. Oh man, I just remembered this. What is Jarvan's passive? Martial Cadence. There we go. 10% auto attack damage on your first hit. It's a lot of damage when you stack up like a few Giant Belts. Digerger's Twisted Advance also does percentage max health. Even though they aren't percentage based, like Blade of the Ruined King, it's still gonna be a lot of damage coming out there on a young Mundo. So something to keep an eye on. Mr. Puggly Wuggly is going in with a decent pick in the mid lane. The Dark Spheres, you can summon them behind Yasuo's Windwall. The only problem is that Yasuo has Windwall for your ultimate, which can make things a little bit difficult. You also can't push or throw Dark Spheres over his Windwall. They just kind of dissipate or stop there. So not something that you can do as a Syndra. So I like this choice by Bobchen. We'll see how he plays that lane. But with our last minute of spectator delay, we are going to take a quick commercial break before we hop into our second match of the night. It's going to be UBC taking on Oregon State University. We'll have that game and one more afterwards coming your way after a short commercial break. And of course, if you want to support collegiate esports, make sure to disable your ad blocker. We really appreciate it. It helps us continue to stream, and we do want to appreciate you for tuning in tonight. Also big to have your support out here. So once again, we'll be heading to a quick commercial break. We'll see you back here in just a minute.
Welcome to Summoner's Rift.
And welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to NLCS. It's week 4, day number 4, if I'm not mistaken. All right, I got it right. And we're out on the Rift for our second game of the night here at NLCS. It's University of British Columbia. They're, of course, your team in the blue, and they'll be taking on Oregon State University team in the red. Oregon State maybe a little disadvantaged. UBC, they've been atop the standings for quite a while. And in fact, if I'm not mistaken, they actually occupy the 3rd place spot in that Western rankings. Of course, behind, see, I'm confused as how Texas A&M are at the top. They're 4-2. Oh, I guess they're tied with SJSU, who are 4-0. It's about the total points you pick up, not necessarily your losses. So 3-1 score for UBC, only losing their first game to SJSU Gold. So we'll have them play out here again, and excited to see how things work out. Arcane Smash drawing a little bit of damage there. Dirger may be in a little bit of trouble. SS for fail, missing that briefcase. So actually could have been a nice collapse there if SS failed maybe cleavered a little bit earlier, but I'll check that out and see how it works out. Big thing to watch out for, at least as far as this matchup is concerned, is going to be the first gank. If it comes bottom lane, gets a kill onto external, he's pretty screwed in that matchup. And of course, with both junglers actually, wait, what is happening here? We have a very late invade. Oh, but Mr. Pugly Wuggly is gonna have to watch out for this. Very late invade on the blue buff here for proof of purchase. Remy's taking a little bit of damage, but you gotta put that damage out onto proof and stop him from tanking this blue buff. Nobody there to smite it away, and proof will actually pick up a counter jungle on the enemy blue buff. And of course, we'll be able to head back over to his red buff in order to grab both of those. Except that he's actually going to skip his red buff because it's not really a big mystery where Yasuo Champloo is coming. More importantly, because Dirger shoved the top wave, SS for fail actually cannot come down and try to fight this. Bobchin has actually shoved the mid lane too, and that'll also make the jungle a little bit safer here for proof of purchase. Shoving up your lanes, what it does is it gives you maybe more chance of being ganked, but when the jungler is still going for his second camp, you actually really don't have to worry about being ganked at all. And that is a big realization that UBC have here. Push up both your lanes after going for this counter jungle. And it means that if you're a jungler and you're trying to get that blue buff away from your opponents, well, you're not going to have a good time because you're just going to get collapsed on. It's not a big mystery. They don't want you stealing their buffs. So proof of purchase will actually pick up his second blue buff in a row. And if you're super meta, Yasuo Champloo would actually walk now to the red buff instead of just going back into his jungle. But he's going to take one for the team and actually settle for a 1 buff start. That'll give a very, very strong start over to XDG's jungler to UBC's jungler proof of purchase. I always get that mixed up. I'm like, too many acronyms out here. But we're getting back into the actual game as a whole. You're going to see an early recall in the mid lane just for consumables. Mr. Pugly Wuggly taking a trip back to base the hard way, man. He is out of lane incredibly early. And, Bobchin is actually pushing this wave, so might miss out on a little bit of CS if he can hit that turret more quickly enough. I've yet to see if that's really going to be too crucial, because if you do look at the mid lane matchup, it's only about 4 CS difference, and now it's actually Bobchin who's heading back to base, but he is going to take a trip back after shoving the wave into the enemy turret. Much better position to go back in, and you can already see External just not too happy about the way this bottom lane's going, even having to go as far as hitting that Bioarcane Barrage just to keep this trades even in the bottom lane. Bombs, slows, shields, resets, it's all coming in there for Remy, and he's putting that harass back down onto Bonifacio, who, interestingly enough, his shield is actually strong enough to block out 1 bomb from Zilean. Usually Remy builds enough AP on his Zillions in order to make that happen. This time running with no AP, but gotta keep an eye out in the mid lane. The flash is in, the auto attacks are good! Mr. Pugly Wuggly is coming up with 1 kill. SS for fail will be able to come in there, might be able to take out proof of purchase. The flash in, the cleaver, it's SS for fail. He's changed his name to SS for success. Needs 1 more cleaver into Cocoon, but the Cocoon will miss there in the mid lane, so it is a kill. Right back and forth there. Mr. Pugly Wugglies, unfortunately, a name cuter than all the others, still has to die. He'll pick up his first death of the game there, along with the first death there for Bobchin. Bob did not pick up a kill there in that matchup, so big lane swap, even though as far as jungler performance, maybe gives it proof of purchase a little bit of an advantage over Yasuo Champloo. And of course, he already had that advantage from getting 3 buffs at the start of the game. That's going to push things home really, really hard. Now coming back in for another Cocoon gank there. Wind Wall immediately to stop it. Apparently spiders can walk through wind walls though, so not sure how that works out, but Bobchin should not have any problems going for the CS turret, and he'll grab those away, put up a nice ward, and actually needs to clear this pink ward. There's already 2 pink wards in the upper jungle here for UBC, and actually maybe try to get a gank here, catching Syndra out while trying to defend those wards. I don't think Proof's too worried about the backup. Much stronger dual lane, especially off the knock up there for Proof of Purchase. Once Bobchin hits level 6, they might just like walk into Yasuo Champloo's jungle. Like, there's nothing to stop them from doing that. They are very, very strong as a duo lane. They got lots of knockups, almost guaranteed if you're Proof of Purchase. Bobchin once again backing out of lane, knowing that he's pushed a big wave underneath turret. Another wave not actually coming for all that long. 30-second spawns on those waves will give him an opportunity to go back. Gotta keep an eye on Kog'Maw though. External taking some big hits in the bottom lane, actually missing out on a lot of the CS. You can see the CS differential now up to 12. It's not like that's a big deal in and of itself, but it's a good indication of exactly how the lane is going early on. 12 CS is 2 waves of minions, and at 7 minutes, there's only been so many waves pushing in there. That's a very high percentage of minions you're just not getting. And of course, of course, Lucian there with 50, starting to put up some big numbers down there too, as he actually leads the game in minion score right now, all the way up at 52 currently. So big early start in the bottom lane there, which is what you'd expect from a Lucian, especially versus a Kog'Maw. I don't know too many teams that want to actually put that as a dual lane against each other, just because it is pretty risky. You risk getting your Kog'Maw behind early on, and then never being able to get him come back, playing a 4v5, and nobody likes those games. Dunked out immediately. There's the knockup on a Mr. Pugly Wugly's kind of out of nowhere, trying to get out of that Cataclysm. Can't do it, and about the manliest gank he could have asked for there from Proof of Purchase. He's like, alright, I got all this mana, let's dunk it down, and winds up using all of that. Jarvan's combo actually winds up being relatively mana hungry. If you look at his Cataclysm, 100 mana, the Nautian Standard is 50, and then of course you got another 50 mana. That's 210 mana just for that combo. When as Jarvan the 4th, you only have about 400 mana in your mana pool, that's half your pool just gone right there. So you got to make sure you got enough for that. He's going for the counter jungle, but it's a bait for Bobchin, and pretty sure Yasuo Champloo knows it. His jungle's kind of gone right now. So with a big rotation up there into the jungle, this is forcing the issue, starting to give UBC these big unequivocated advantages. You walk into the jungle, you take it down, and there's Proof of Purchase. Getting all that mana back, we just talked about this thing. Bobchin, of course, coming back in that mid lane, up to a 10 CS advantage as well, and this bottom lane starting to maybe get a little bit out of control, especially since Yasuo Champloo can't really gank it without getting a... I'm kind of surprised he didn't walk around the corner there through the tri-brush. I mean, that's your typical gank path, but I guess he didn't have a way to clear out the wards and tries, so just tried walking in the lane. Just in case Remy had been sneaky enough to put down some ward coverage. So that's Sister Fail versus Dijurger up in the top lane. Probably the most even matchup out there, and I guess that's somewhat to be expected just because, I mean, it's 2 super tanks. Cleaver missing there, maybe turning that back around, but oh, look at the bottom lane. Flashes forced out as Bonifacio taken down very, very low. Oh my gosh, that bomb explosion taking him down to just about 60 HP. Not quite what you're looking for. Now, SS for Fail actually could have gone in for the kill there on the Dijurger, or at least forced him to blow a flash with his ultimate, but he got knocked away by a nice Arcane Smash. That was actually a lot bigger than people might notice. If you miss your Arcane Smash for the disengage, you can't really stop people from fighting you, so one of Maokai's big strengths up there. One of his big weaknesses, though, is dealing with his mana pool, but he actually hasn't had too much of a problem with that so far this game, which is just really good mana management. I was playing games with a Bronze 2 friend of mine. I was like, hey, why do you bring Clarity? And I'm just like, well, I need more mana. Use it all up too quickly. I was like, well, why don't you just like not use it sometimes and, you know, kill the minions with auto attacks instead of spells? And he's like, well, spells are just easier. I was like, yes, sir. Yes, they certainly are. However, I'm gonna need to keep this bottom lane in there. Not sure exactly why that Janna ult was for. Maybe trying to put some extra pressure down there, but maybe a little bit worried about Kog'Maw. He's gonna go back to base anyway, man. Pasio, a little bit of a questionable Janna ult there, but it was gonna keeps External alive. There's no kill potential down there. Where there is kill potential, of course, is in that top lane. I didn't actually catch the gank. I was a little bit distracted by talking about bottom, but with that roam top lane, jungler pressure is nowhere around the Dragon Pit. This might actually be a big chance to go in for something down bottom. Respawn comes in, and SS Repel's gonna get the slow out here on Remy. He's kind of gonna suicide. Should still die here. No, still alive, but more important targets out there. To beat Choi gonna go down here, and Remy trying to zoom his way back to home base as quickly as possible. UBC maybe taking a little bit of a hit down there, but that kill, going for the kill, actually stalls them away from taking this dragon, which is, I feel, probably the big thing to watch out for. Diejerger, very, very tanky. Not sure if there's enough damage to take him down. The Ignite's actually going to do that, but now Yasuo Champloo probably going to die. Just kidding. We got that Zillion ult in there, actually keeping everybody alive. It's not enough to keep Diejerger in there. He is the first casualty. Last auto attack from External. Taking these kills internal, but now he is forced to go up against Bobchin, XD, and Remy. Plenty of mana and damage there. You can see nobody gonna even hit up there by that Acathian. Surprising a big, big turnaround team fight. 7-5 now off of the big team fight win. I believe that was a 4-for-2 exchange. Could be wrong. 4-for-3 maybe. I didn't catch the respawns there, but it was big. Big matchup. I should go into the habit of hitting this A button to make sure that I know who dies. In case you guys have never used the team fight recap in when you're observing games, it is totally worth it. It's pretty sick. It's what they do in LCS for their replays. But either way, the big thing to watch out for, at least so far, is going to start to be that Yasuo snowball. It is what is so important to this UBC team comp, and if Bobchin gets ahead in that comp, it's going to be pretty scary. Lots of knockups out there to watch out for, both from Maokai and Jarvan. And, you know, sure, that's not lots necessarily, but they're very guaranteed. There's only so many ways you can miss a flag toss from Jarvan. His standard Demacia makes it pretty easy to land those knockup combos. And, of course, with Maokai, you're going to get Twisted Advanced, so there's only so many ways, once again, to dodge the knockup after that, even with things like a Banshee's Veil. That's, you're still going to take the Twisted Advanced damage. UBC now starting up the Dragon here at the 13.5-minute mark. A little bit late by Dragon standards, but Diejerger's actually going to TP top lane, looking to defend this counter, but might not be in too good a place. He is pretty tanky there with a completed Rod of Ages, but this is going to be a 3-man dive. SS Reveal going to start taking things up, and no, actually, Yasuo Champloo the one to take. No. He was just the one taking the damage. SS Reveal, though, will kill off Diejerger. Little bit of a maligned teleport top lane. Not something you want to go for in a 1v3. Good idea, and it was enough to bait them off of this. Now, big combo we were talking about, looking for the knockups there. None to find there. Bobchin still looking for the damage. He's got it on the Mr. Pugly. Wildly turns him down there with a static shift. Gets that last breath on SS for a fail, and it's a massacre. UBC. And look, you want to dive our top laner, we're going to dive you. In a 2v3 UBC comes out ahead with a 3-for-1 exchange. Proof of purchase and Bobchin really putting that combo to work. And it wasn't actually the combo that got put to work there. Maybe a little bit of a correction. The knockup only landed by Bobchin, so he was the one that picked up that knockup there at the end for the last breath after Proof of Purchase actually missed his. So a little bit rough to see. And if you're talking about survivability now, it's going to start to get a little bit rough for SS Rafael. He's put all of this early damage into, or all this early gold into picking up tank stats, and most of them are MR. So if to beat Choi, if Proof of Purchase, if Bobchin, if any of them get in onto him, he's not going to survive for very long. pushing intensifies in the mid lane as Remy and Dijurger start to put some numbers up there. And of course, they have Proof of Purchase coming in from behind. Be able to help that out a little bit too, but those shields on the turrets actually really impressive from Bonifacio, and one of the underappreciated mechanics that Janna has to offer. Everybody's like, she has move speed, she has a really good disengage ultimate, she's got a tornado and everything else. Like, you can shield turrets. That allows you to take minion damage on the turret, but not actually lose health on the turret. It's a really big mechanic. You can also stop a few pushes like this. You just put on the shield. It's harder to take down the turret. But of course, a 4v2, 4v3, even that 4v4 is materialized there in the mid lane. Not something that UBC are really too afraid of. They know that they have the dive potential. All ultimates up there for them. Actually, ults up for both teams. Not quite as impressive there for External, and of course he was actually out of mana, so unable to really offer a whole lot of poke presence from that team fight. Mr. Puggly Wuggly's had a lot of mana, but of course he's the only single target as far as his damage is concerned, so gotta keep an eye out onto this. No knock up there, but the dunk nonetheless. Okay, I'm not sure how that knock up landed. I'm guessing it was Bob Shin who got the knock up on there, but just wombo comboing out Mr. Pugglies. No flash, no mobility, and really punishing that factor. UBC come up with their 11th kill of the game. A little bit of an interesting Jarvan mechanic there, and I do want to maybe touch on this a little bit. You know how when you when you use the taunt on Shen, you can flash and get the taunt at the end of it? Well, same thing is true for Jarvan. And of course, after I was looking back at that, I got some nice info from our producer. It was like, well, if you use the Jarvan ult while you're in the middle of your knockup, you actually land the knockup when you land for the Cataclysm. So it's a little bit of an interesting way of repositioning yourself. You don't have to use flash. It's just a knockup mechanic on the ultimate when it repositions you before you actually do land your knockup from your standard into Dragon Strike. So pretty cool mechanic there. Proof using that to set Bobshit up for the knockup there in the jungle. Of course, he's also been comboing things out in the top lane. Speaking of top lane, Yasuo Champloo finding a kill there on a Dijurger. And honestly, this is Dijurger's third death of the game. That guy is not having a good time up there. Let's put it that way. Spectre's Cowl picked up will make him a lot tankier versus this primarily magic damage team comp. And it's actually pretty interesting because both teams have super tanks up in the top lane. Both teams have primarily one damage type too. All magic damage for University of Oregon, or Oregon State University. Sorry, I keep messing that up. And all physical damage there for the lineup of UBC. Now, Dr. Mundo does actually deal a fair amount of physical damage, so maybe a little bit more moderate there. Kog'Maw also deals a lot of physical damage too, so maybe some hybrid out there. No stuns to land though from that Scat of the Week, and Remy's having a good time. He's having a ball. We'll see if they can stop him now. As I gotta say, Oregon State, they put together a nice team comp. Like the idea, you got a big front line, some long range stuns, and long range damage with the Janna to keep that long range a factor. But you're gonna have to be really good at stopping Proof of Purchase disengaged with that Janna ult in order to keep the knockups off your back line. SS for fail as well. I don't know, man. That is going to be a rough Mundo build to go with, especially against this full physical damage team. Okay, dunk down there onto Mr. Puggly Wugglies. Don't even have to land a knockup or anything. You just can't run. And surprisingly enough, Mr. Puggly Wugglies actually had flash up there. And I'm pretty sure he would have been able to escape. Maybe he was expecting to get chased by the standard, knocked up anyway and still die, but forced to blow his flash. So saving the Summoner's Bell, I guess that's okay. Boy, that's your 6th death of the game, man. You gotta start to pull that back at least at some point. Because getting focused so hard by UBC is really punishing out the immobility of that mid lane. And making Oregon State University pay a little bit for going with such an immobile pick. Jungle, both sides of it have been completely controlled by UBC this game, even from just that level 1. The late invade onto the blue buff. I think they even would have been able to fight there too. So a very strong early game strat from UBC. Worked out, got Proof of Purchase ahead, and oh, the arcane smash from Dijurger. Outplaying the lack of smite there from Yasuo Champloo. So a little bit of a nice outplay. But See how this works out here for UBC after they come back from a first big recall. It's a static shift pickup, so Bobchin is he's respecting OSU just a little bit. He's like, all right, I would rush the Infinity Edge, but let's just be real, I need some mid-game pressure. And to be honest, Blade of the Ruined King is a great second item. If you're Void Boy, you actually build that item first on Yasuo in the mid lane. I don't really like foregoing that much crit that early on. I feel like it's really important, but if you need to sustain, then you need to sustain, and Bobchin does, but just a little bit later on. Of course, now he'll be going for that Infinity Edge coming up next. Mr. Puggly Wugglies, though, he's going to come back from base with no makings of a Deathfire Grasp or a Death Cap. Two items that I'm pretty sure he'd like to have at this point in the game. Forced to go for an early Morellonomicon instead of that Fiend's Unholy Grail, more importantly, so there's not as much mana regen coming his way. Also, a little less magic resistance, so, you know, maybe Digerger and Remy able to put out a little more damage on that source. But of course, it's only going to be physical damage that kills you in this team. Bobchin and Tabi Choi really far ahead in that department, at least against their counterparts. You can see a 40 CS advantage in the mid lane. There's actually a 50 CS advantage in the bottom lane there, so actually no, it's like yeah, it's 50 CS. All right, I got it. No, that's 60. All right, my math is a little bit off tonight. It's a good thing I spent 12 years of college going to school making sure I could do basic arithmetic. Oh my goodness. And now it comes time for the Bush of Death. Baiting out this Baron buff. Unfortunately, it's been warded up, so not too scared about this one. SS for fail. But some big damage cleavers there. Of course, the magic stat passive. It's a good way to heal things up. So if you want to take a look at priorities as far as UBC is concerned, not sure what that wood wall is really accomplishing. I guess it keeps projectiles from going through the wall. Makes a little bit of sense. But for UBC, what they're trying to accomplish is just putting pressure on and then go off for a hard engage. So if they actually start this Baron, you should expect to see them not finish it, but go for a peel off into team fight. Just because they are a little bit vulnerable to getting outsmited here. The Jarvan damage is not incredibly strong on Baron. You're sure your first auto attack does a lot of damage, but afterwards, the execute damage from the Venomous Bite on Yasuo Champloo is a lot to worry about, especially if you aren't able to coordinate your burst on a Baron buff. It's maybe a little bit more of a 50-50. Whereas if you're looking for Oregon State University, at this point they're just looking to stall things out, man. They don't want to go for this. Digerger, of course, he doesn't know that's worded out there, but somehow walking through it, it's not going to be a recipe the doctor ordered there for external. Going to be able to put out a lot of area of effect damage in the team fight, but not where he needed to be. An explosive disengage from the Baron, just like we expected. Now Digerger actually might be looking for a twisted advance. Nope, gets hit by that cleaver. A little bit curious what external was doing there. I'm actually going to go back and see if that ward actually sees in the bush. Turns out, oh my goodness, the ward placed out there that I thought let external see exactly what was going on was placed just outside the bush. Didn't give vision of the bush itself. And so external just walked forward, got twisted advance, and that's kind of all she wrote there for that team fight. 1v2, man against the world there. Bobchin should be able to pick up this 1v2. A double kill. 10 and 1. Bobchin XD, he's put in some work here. Clocking in for the 8-hour shift. 10 and 1 performance there. And on a Yasuo-centric team comp, it's kind of good when your Yasuo gets this far ahead. So incredibly strong team fight, strategic, positional advantages. UBC kind of does it all at this point, and that missed ward placement really cost OSU that team fight. Just not giving external the info that he needed. Now XDG Proof might be going a little bit aggressive. Burns the Ignite and the Syndra ultimate just for that. I think at max CDR, it's about a 50-second revive on Remy. Maybe it's like less than that at 40 seconds or something. It's pretty crazy if you're spamming that rewind on Zillion. So gonna keep proof of purchases head in the game as he walked forward and blew that summoner spell for Mr. Puggly Wugglies. Should have probably known there was a revive coming in there, but hey, you gotta go for it at this point. Gotta at least try to put yourself back on the board. 16-7, not a good position to be in, especially giving away That Baron buff. Now, good thing for OSU is that they have secured for themselves both of their jungle buffs. That means there's more CDR on Mr. Puggly Wugglies. He'll actually have his ultimate available for this team fight, as well as a red buff on Kog'Maw. Red buff Kog'Maw, it's no joke. That's a good way to come back in the game if you're keeping an eye on that now. Fading things out there at the blue buff. You gotta know Dragon's coming off here, but I think instead of trying to contest the Dragon and pick a team fight, something that they pretty much know they lose, waiting to out here at the blue buff. I don't think Proof of Purchase is worried too much there. Big knockup, counter knockups coming in there, but you gotta get some Yasuo follow up there. Bobchin is just not there in time. One kill, second kill is coming in there. They don't even need their Yasuo at this point. Just way too strong. A triple kill coming out there for Defeat Choi. I think this is kind of nailing the nail in the coffin, as opposed to the other place that you'd nail nails for emphatic effect. Yeah, UBC coming out with a big team fight win, 3-for-0, and a big turret push coming their way. Now, relatively low levels and low time in the game mean that it's very short respawn timers. But immediate re-engage there. Oh my gosh, Mr. Puggly Wuggly is saying it ain't so. GG is actually coming out now with only a small minion wave being pushed into the base. Janna doing the best that she can to keep this game alive, but not going to be enough. 1 kill, 2 kills, surrender vote coming in. UBC improving to 4-1 on the season.